Okay, now we're going to start talking about painting and painting your background. Some of you might need brown, and so a good way to do that is to actually mix complements. Okay, so in order to mix complements, complements are directly across from each other, and so I've actually added a tiny bit of the red to the green. The more red I add, the more brown it's going to look. So that is an option for you. The other thing I want you to know is that I've added the red to the green on purpose to actually create some darker areas. I can do that again by adding the green. And if you want to make it look a little darker, you can do a couple options. You can add a tiny bit of black to the green or your color. And you can see what's going to happen with that. I'm also, instead of doing that, I'm actually going to be adding a lot more of the blue to the green to be able to create my shadows so that it becomes a little darker. Keep that in mind for any of your colors. The first thing that you're going to be doing is painting your background. So I already have my bug laid out. I am actually going to have my photograph sitting next to me, and my photo is going to help me with my value changes. I know that all of the background is green because I have actually looked at my color photo. So this is all green. So what I'm going to do is make sure that obviously this area is a darker green. This back here is going to be a really bright green. And so I'm going to make sure that even though I'm looking at a black and white photo, I'm actually matching the values that I need, okay? So make sure that you kind of have your colors in mind. And because of the background being nice and bright up here in the corner, and also it's very, very smooth. Down here is a little bit more textured. What I'm going to do is grab some yellow. And the original green that I made, because this is my main green, and so I want to make that green a little brighter. And so I'm choosing to add yellow. I could choose to add white and make a tint, but I want it to be more of a yellow green up here in the top. And so I am choosing to add yellow instead of adding white. Since it's smooth, I'm going to go ahead and paint and make sure that I paint the background quickly so that I can create some smooth transitions of the yellow. When I hit my subject, I want to make sure that I go around it, but at the same time, let's go ahead and make sure that we cover up any pencil lines because we know that our subject is on top of the background, and so we want to make sure that your pencil lines are covered. And when it's time to paint the subject, we're actually going to paint the subject over the top of the background. You're noticing that I'm having quite a bit in my brush. That's why it's easy to smooth. In the top corner over here, I'm looking at my photo and I realize that it's a little darker. So I'm going to grab my darker green. And if you're using a flat brush, it's really easy to drag that across and make a nice straight border against your pencil marks here. And you're noticing that I've got it a little darker in this top corner. And so to transition, this is still wet, so I need to move quickly and get this to transition over. If your background is more of a texturized background, mine's pretty smooth, so I want to make sure that I'm keeping my brush strokes going the same way and having enough paint that I am smoothing it. You can apply your colors a little differently than I, and so I'm going to talk about that here once I get down to the bottom of my painting. So let's pretend I've already painted this. It gets texturized right here, and so when that happens, I'm actually going to put a base color, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint over the top of that. So you're noticing that it's pretty bright back here. And how do I know that? Because I'm actually looking at the value of my photograph. But at the same time, I am having in my mind what that original photo looked like. It's a little bit more green. I'm going to go ahead and make mine a lot more of a yellow green. So I'm putting that here. I'm going to go ahead and paint right over this. I know this area is texturized, but I'm going to go ahead and paint over it. You're noticing I have not wiped my brush off at all because I just keep going back and forth between the same colors. Right now I'm going to wipe it off though because I want to go a little darker and get a darker green so that I can create a nice clean edge on top of that. I'm actually going to grab a smaller brush and I want to make a darker green. And so right now I'm going to choose to make a shade. So I've added a little bit of black to my green. You're going to notice that it might kind of be more of a brownish color. But once I get it onto the paper, it's going to look really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and make this leaf here because I see that there's a contrast, a really dark edge here. And then I'm noticing that once that leaf gets down to this line, it has these really crazy textures to it. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this. And you're noticing also that I'm going pretty quick. I don't want the background really detailed. The background is supposed to be soft and fuzzy with color. So you shouldn't really have too many images in the background. This is going to be the most detailed. So since I've already got that edge on there, looking at the values here, I'm noticing there's some bright white highlights. So I'm actually going to use yellow, and I'm going to kind of dab my brush on there to grab that. I can also grab white paint and add my green to the white. So I'm making a nice bright tint of the green. And I can dab some of that texture on top while it's still wet. So the way that you're applying your paint is the texture that you're actually going to be able to show up. So you're noticing that I'm kind of dabbing the paint in that area. I'm going to grab some green while it's still wet and kind of grab here. The cool part about painting is that you can manipulate it while it's still wet and kind of go back and forth. Again, I don't want you to spend too much time on the background. That we want to make sure that the main area of your subject is the most important, which is the most detailed. So the background is going to be really, really fuzzy. What I'm doing now is I'm making a shade by adding a little bit of black to the green. And remember, my green is not a tint. It doesn't have any white in it. This is my tint. I don't want to put black in there. It's going to look gray. Why am I doing that? Because I'm looking at my values. And I'm seeing it's a lot darker down here. So I'm just going to make a darker green and fill this in. And then once that's dry, I'm going to come back and add some quick details. And that's all I'm going to do for the background.